For tuning in today. You are listening to the Adam Messer Show here on WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Sebastian Messer is going to be in the studio with me today, so you'll be able to hear some live music today from him. And then I have my special guest today. She is an author, and she has been living in France, and we're fortunate enough that she came home this summer to visit her family, and so she's going to be able to talk with us today. Lisa, I hope I'm saying this right, but is it Lisa Czarina Michaud?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Yes, that's it.
Okay, awesome. So I am so excited to have you here with us on the phone. You are up in New York, right?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me, Adam. So, yeah, I'm calling from New York.
I'm excited. It's so crazy. This show today, us talking today, is proof of how connected we all are, and I mean that in a really neat way, because you reached out to me because of a Facebook group, and you were staying in Paris, right? And I was like, well, that's so cool. I've got shows coming up in August, which today's August the 1st. And, but I don't know how we work out the time thing. You're like, oh, well, I'm going to just happen to be home at that time. So it'll work out great.
Yeah, it was magical. It was like, it was meant to be, I think, especially the Facebook comment. And then I'm a fan of your son's band. I watched that, or listened to rather, that episode, and they're so great. He's such an amazing guitarist.
Thank you.
His finger picking is fantastic. I was really impressed.
Yeah, he's actually doing a little errand real quick, but we'll have to tell him that when he comes back on, because that's one of the things. He's 18, just about to be 19, and he's been playing for like 6 years now. So I think it's pretty cool. And he plays live on the show for us. Usually he plays like acoustic music. He's got one of those Ovation guitars like Jim Croce used to use. And so I love that. But that's one of the things I love about art and music. Your from the preview you sent me, your books are about a musician, right?
Yeah, it's about a young rock band, about a little older than Sebastian, but I mean, it's the same. They're 20 years old and just as passionate as he is about music.
Yeah, that's cool. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
So about me, I'm a native New Yorker, and I've traveled. I've lived in so many different places. I've lived in Seattle. I've lived down in Los Angeles, and then I moved to Paris on kind of a whim. I've been working since I was 13 years old, and I said, you know what? Before I turn 30, I want to do something brave, something I would never do. And I quit my job and I moved to Paris with my life savings.
Oh wow!
And that was 13 years ago. And I met my husband. I had a baby, and I got married, of course, and now I don't even live in Paris anymore. I live in the suburbs, which is about 50 minutes outside of the city.
Oh, wow.
In this small medieval village, and there I write my stories, and I also translate and write marketing copy as well.
Oh, wow.
My passion is novels.
Do you translate from like English to French or French to English or both, or?
I do French to English. That's what I'm most comfortable with, yeah, and that was something I learned while living in France. I started reading novels because we don't have we do have some American bookstores, but they're small and they're not everywhere. So I had to learn how to read French if I wanted to keep reading. So that's about me, and I also play in a little bit of a band myself. It's more for fun. We do cover songs, but I'm in a little folk band that I play in once a year. We're trying to do it a little more often. We're just pretty much sleep-deprived parents that like to pretend we're rock stars once a year. And it's so like nourishing that it's like one of my favorite hobbies, that I'm trying to do it a little more often.
So I love that. I am not really a musician either. But, well, I mean, it sounds like you're a musician, but I'm not. And I love music, though. I love live music. Like, growing up, I had an uncle that used to play. He would sing, and he could play the guitar. And I think it's so cool that my son's able to play and sing. He'd never met my uncle that could play and sing. but I just thought so cool when someone does, like they're into music or art or writing. That's one of the things I love, with writing, and connecting with other creative people, because there's so, I don't know how to say it. There's so much that goes on, like our world. We have an industrialized world, and we have so many things that we do that are circled around production or circled around just everyday living, like cooking dinner or doing laundry or whatever, or going to work, that kind of thing. That when you take that time to create art, and by art I mean like in general just the arts, right? You take that time and you spend that with other people. There's a connection there that you don't have when you're talking about like, well, hey man, did you get those reports in for me? So that's one of the things I love.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, there's something really pure and like just really basic about playing a song or writing a story.
Yeah.
That, it transcends, technology and just the world that we live in. You can kind of take a break from the noise. Even though music is contributing to sound, you get to take a break from the chatter around you and just say, you know what, I really like this, I don't know, this Rolling Stones song, and you just like play it, and it just feels good, and you go, and it's just something you contributed to yourself and to whoever's around you, and it's a beautiful thing, especially for children. My son has a really wonderful ear for music, and
nice.
You must have done something with Sebastian if he's so attuned to music as well. Like maybe you were playing music when you were.
He's actually here. We could ask him real quick. He just got in.
Okay, let's ask him.
Yeah.
Hi.
This is Lisa.
Hi,
this is
Lisa.
Sebastian.
Hi.
And Lisa is she's been living in Paris, or like outside of Paris, for the last 13 years.
Wow, that's really cool.
So
Thanks.
she's an author and a musician, and she was saying like she just was.
I heard you play like the Rolling Stones and stuff like that.
I'm sorry?
Well, he was like the question. I think you were like talking about like the influence or whatever. I was like, let me let Sebastian speak on that. She was asking about like the influence of on you for music or whatever.
Well, I think really what started it all. So I remember like the first memory I have of it is like I was like 11, 12. And I remember my dad was playing the Master of Puppets Metallica CD in the car, and all three of us, we were like, oh my God, please turn it off! It's hurting my head.
It's hurting my ears.
Yeah, and then I don't know what it was. Just one day, I discovered the song "Jump" by Van Halen, and I watched the music video on YouTube. And I just really liked how Eddie Van Halen was playing, and so I just wanted to be the next Eddie Van Halen, and then it just spiraled from there.
That's a pretty good influence, Eddie. He shreds.
Oh yeah,
he definitely knows how to play the guitar. So he's a great influence.
And Lisa, you said your son is starting to show interest in playing.
Yeah, well, he's starting to play the drums. And he's 5, but his like musical education is really involved. Like, he knows his David Bowie from his Bob Dylan like very well, and he's a huge fan of this artist Sufjan Stevens, who does a lot more folk music.
Oh, nice.
And folk, really beautiful acoustic. Talking about finger picking, that's one of his specialties, I'd say. But yeah, my son is, when I was pregnant, I listened to a lot of music on my headphones. I was listening to a lot of Grateful Dead. I wanted like really soothing, really like kind of Americana kind of music. And I guess he was listening to something picked up, because he leans towards that kind of music, that folk, kind of that like really simple sound. But now he's playing the drums, so it's not going to be so simple. It's going to be pretty noisy, I imagine, very soon.
That's cool.
But we're welcoming it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Do you want to play a lick there, Bass? Or
yeah, I can.
Yeah, cool.
And we were talking. Lisa was saying that she had listened to that whole interview with the Krieger thing.
Oh yeah.
And that she was saying that she really enjoyed that. music.
I liked you when you guys did Ace of Spades. Here it goes.
Thanks, Bass. That was great.
Wow, that was beautiful. That was really beautiful.
I had the way that the phone works with the audio jack, I had to take it off and put it on speaker so you could hear it, because I guess the way that the system works. So I was hoping you could hear it. I'm glad you could.
Oh, I heard it perfectly. Thank you so much. That was really, really soothing.
Yeah, I grew up listening to like James Taylor and like Bob Denver and those guys. Jim Croce, and so I always like that kind of I don't listen to it all the time, but I do like that genre of music, like that folk. You know, it's not necessarily, it's not really country music, but it's also kind of like Americana, like you said. So
yeah, it's nice. I know you don't only listen to that because you listen to Master of Puppets. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's a good album too.
Oh yeah. We went. There's a little record store down the street, not too far from here, called Grayface Records, and so we go check them out and get music from time to time. And I don't know. It's so crazy, but I don't know if you guys, if y'all had any of these when you're growing up, or if you had them or not. But there's little radios that had do you remember the boom boxes back in the day? Because I really don't. I don't know what. Did you grow up in the 80s and 90s, or?
I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 81, so I definitely know what a boombox is.
I was born in 76, and so yeah. So anyway, when I was a kid, I had one of those General Electric radios. It wasn't a boombox. I had a boombox too, but I had this one little radio. It had a one speaker, like this little round speaker, and it had a cassette player, and it had an AM FM, but it also had a built-in microphone, and so it had a tape player and all that. So it's crazy because we were at Graveface a couple weeks ago, and I was looking, I was like, oh man, that reminds me kind of like the radio that I had growing up. Of course, I didn't have it now. And good old internet. I found it, and I bought one and had it shipped to me, and it was great. And then I was looking at the one that they had over there. They got another one, but it doesn't have a tape player. And I was showing Sebastian. I was like, we were looking at it today. I was like, feel this thing. It's like a brick. Like, they used to, like the way that they used to make stuff back then. Everything was like solid, and it was, I don't know how to say it, but like a lot of the stuff that they built was just, I'm not saying it's necessarily better quality, but it was definitely heavier, and they used, just different kind of parts, I guess. And the stuff today, like it's more lightweight or whatever, but this thing was like a brick. We picked it up, I was like, oh, look at this. So
totally. I mean, remember TVs would take up like half a room.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Remember the back end of the television? It was like 2 or 3 feet deep.
Oh, yeah. You could die from a TV falling on you.
Yeah. No, I remember bulky appliances for sure, but we were less mobile.
Yeah.
You know, now we're all on the go, so everything has to be lightweight. Otherwise, forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one of the things I appreciate growing up in the 80s and 90s was, not having the phone. I know we have the phone today and we use it for a lot of things, and it's wonderful. There's a lot of cool things with it, but I still like, disconnecting from that internet world. So
Absolutely. Remember calling someone and leaving a message, answering machines, or just being like, "Hi, is Michelle home?"
I got a good one
calling.
for you. I got to do the station ID real quick, Lisa. Everybody, you are tuning in today to WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global as a Whole. This is the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, here today with my special guest, author Lisa Czarina Michaud. And yeah, I've got a good one for that. I saw, I have been watching videos on TikTok. I don't know what it is about TikTok, but I like TikTok. It's kind of just little short, funny clips and stuff like that. But anyway, talking about that, the phone thing or whatever, calling people up. So like different generations, they've used different technology or whatever, right? And one of the things that they were talking about, there was this video that was talking about like this lady, she's a freelancer. And she was saying, well, most of her clients are older, so they always want to talk on the phone. And she hates talking on the phone. She's like, please just text me. And see, I'm one of those people like, I can deal with texting and emailing and that kind of stuff, or messaging on social media. I can deal with that. But if I want to go ahead and just knock it out, and like if we're working on a freelance project together or something like that, I just want to talk to you. We lay it out and then we're done. You know what I mean? And like we touch base about, whatever. It's kind of like you get the foundation of either face to face or voice to voice, and then whatever. And I actually, there was this one person that I commissioned a couple times for art or whatever. And I was like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about, commissioning you for art. And they absolutely did not want to talk to me on the phone at all. Like they were like, oh, I'm busy this week. I was like, that's fine. We could talk next week. No, I'd rather you just email me the specs. And I was like, I just would prefer to talk to you real quick, and then we can iron out, the specs or whatever. And she just didn't want to do it. And I was like, well, I guess you don't need my business. That's fine. So, but it's just one of those things. I guess it's like, for me, not growing up with the internet and then having it when I was like 18 and on up, and being around since like the dial-up days to smartphones.
The modems, the screeching modem sound. Yes,
right,
I know it.
Right. So it's kind of like you see the best of both worlds.
I'm a phone call kind of girl too. I mean, I'll do a quickie text, and I mean the whole idea of the text is it's supposed to be quicker, but it's really not. A phone call is much quicker. You get all the you can finish something in like a few minutes.
You can say
talk about it.
You can literally say probably 10,000 words or so in a 10-minute call. Between the two of you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've done phone interviews for the articles that I write for the newspaper. I have 500 word copy, right, of copy space. It's a tight little space, but I've talked to people on the phone for less than 10 minutes and gotten everything I needed, doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then texting, then there's the autocorrect. And if you're not paying attention, you might say, you'll say something that doesn't make sense. Then there's the tone, and and then you have to put in the tone is the worst, because sometimes I just want to say yes, but I don't want the person to think I'm being too dry. So I put the obligatory smiley face on it, and that's just outside of my comfort zone.
What happened to please and thank you? Like that. Like I don't know what it is, but whenever there's some folks I say thank you and they'll say no problem. Or they'll say, no worries. And I'm like, I'm like, that's cool, but, like, it is okay to say you're welcome. But some people feel like that's being short. And I'm like, you're not being short when you say you're welcome, or you say please, or you say thank you. Those words were designed for courtesy.
Yes, it's so funny. My brother just said that to me like 2 days ago. He was like, are we not saying you're welcome anymore? Every time I say thank you when I buy something, they say no worries to me.
Yeah.
My brother goes, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
I'm thanking you for helping me.
It is not a problem that you helped me. That's why I was thanking you. Thank you very much for not making it a problem. I do like the way Chick-fil-A says my pleasure. they'll say my pleasure, and that I feel like that's kind of a nice little pleasantry because it's like them acknowledging that you're thanking them, but they also are acknowledging that like they're doing it as part of their job. So
right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's work. It's very sounds formal in a nice way.
Yeah. Kind of like a little southern. I don't know how to say it, but like a little southern, charm. A little southern charm. I say,
yeah.
But it's so funny. I saw you're from New York. I saw a video on TikTok. There was a guy taking a video of a dude laying on the ground with his phone pointed up to a skyscraper, and this guy's like, "This can't be a New Yorker. No New Yorker lays on the ground and takes pictures of an office building."
No.
I had a friend named Aisha. She was from New York. She was from Brooklyn, and she said you always knew the tourists because they're the ones that looked up.
Yep. I grew up in New York City, and I that's how I would identify tourists. I'd say they always look up. Why? Because I was so used to having buildings around me, so it was just part of the background.
Yeah.
But I got my share because then when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, I was driving down I-5 and Mount Rainier was right in front of me. I asked my roommate. I said, I thought it was a painting.
Oh wow!
I was like,
horizon.
I was like, how'd they do that? She goes, how'd they do what? I said, how'd they get that like backdrop looking like it's in the sky? And she said, that's a snow-capped mountain. That's Mount Rainier. I'm like, that's real?
Oh,
I couldn't believe it.
That's
so I mean,
awesome.
you get it on the other side, the other way too.
That's awesome. That's one of the things. Like where we are here in Savannah, we're really in the heart of downtown Savannah, and so we see a lot of people who are visitors, and it's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of the folks are really nice, and you see them. So every once in a while, though, you get somebody that they really don't know where they're going, and they'll cut you off in traffic or something like that. You're like, hey, that's a one-way street you just turned down. You can't go that way. So
yeah, I'm sure they had New York plates too. I'm sure you guys love us. New Yorkers.
It's crazy that I've met a lot of New Yorkers down here. I really have. There's a lot of people from New York, a lot of people from Ohio. I'm from Ohio originally, and so yeah, there's a lot of. I had a friend named Roger. He's from Long Island too. So
nice. Okay. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what part of Ohio are you from?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay. Cincinnati is in my book.
Interesting.
The rock band stops in Cincinnati.
Tell me more about that.
Well, they go on a cross-country tour, and they start in New York, and they end in California, and their first stop is at a dive bar in Cincinnati.
Oh, that's
crazy. And the character in the book, she likes saying Cincinnati because it sounds fun.
Yeah.
She says it feels like something magical is going to happen in Cincinnati.
Old blue chip city, yeah.
I think it's fun to say.
I do too.
So I kind of, it's what happens in Cincinnati. And so they stop off there, and they do a little show, and then they make their way over to Bloomington, Illinois, and they continue until they end in California.
That's so cool. That's such a small... See, like I said at the beginning of this call, I feel like we were connected for a reason. This shows how small the world really is.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Old Cincinnati. That's where I grew up. It's so crazy because the other day I was out shopping, and I ran into somebody wearing a Cincinnati Reds baseball cap. And usually, the younger people, I don't really talk to them as much if I see them wearing a Cincinnati cap. But older folks, I'll say, hey, you're from Cincinnati or whatever, because usually you're not going to wear a Reds hat unless you're a fan, And 9 times out of 10, they're from Cincinnati. And this guy, he grew up not too far from where I grew up. But I could not think of my elementary school name growing up. I kept thinking Whitaker. But that was a friend of mine. His name's Ron Whitaker. And I had to call, after I left, I had to call my mom and say, hey, what was that school name again? It was Whittier. And I was like,
Okay.
Yeah, it was so crazy.
Easy to mix up. But yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like when, cool. Where you live now, if you ran into somebody from Long Island,
Yeah,
you're
totally.
Like, how did, wait, what a minute, what? How did you get over here?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in France, I've never bumped into someone per se from Long Island, so I get excited if someone's from New York.
Yeah.
Well, I get excited if there's an American because it's, we're not even in Paris. So it's like, like when you hear American English being spoken, and like when I'm at the market, I'm like, it's like a radar goes up, and I'm like, oh,
ding, ding, ding.
I hear my people, and you can't help but go over the person. It happens to me too, because we get so excited.
Yeah. I think that's a neat thing about it. You just it's just something like, oh, you get somewhere where you have some kind of commonality like that, and not that you buddy up, but you instantly have something in common, which makes it a little bit easier to chit chat and kind of reminisce on nostalgia.
Yeah, where are you from? What are you doing here? And it's so like it's just so like part of our culture to be so open and curious. Whereas when my husband is here in the States from France, and we see other French people, I'm like, go over and say hi, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? You're both French. And he's like, and? Because we're not American. That doesn't excite us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and I get so disappointed. I'm like, get excited. They are French.
I know what you mean, because my wife is from Mexico City, and she's the same way. I'm like, honey, they're from Mexico. She's like, okay. So
Adam, my grandmother is from Mexico City.
no way.
This is just, we're just going to keep going.
Your grandmother is from Mexico City?
Yeah.
What is her what was her name?
Stella Aguilar.
Aguilar, okay. Yeah, my wife's maiden name was Argumedo Hernandez. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
That is crazy.
The stars
my
are
grandmother,
lining up.
moved to Paris. She moved from Mexico City to California, then had my dad and my aunts and uncles. But then she decided to move to Paris and follow her dream to become a jazz singer.
Oh, wow. Tell me more about that. That's cool.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, did I follow her? She's deceased now. She passed in 2009. And she, in the 60s and the 70s, and I think in part of the 80s, she was living in Paris with her second husband, and who is a jazz drummer, and she would play jazz clubs, and every so often I hear her on French jazz radio.
No way.
They have this one track of hers, and one time I was home by myself, I was writing, my husband wasn't home, and I was just listening to the jazz station as I do, and I hear this song, and I'm like, it's so funny, the opening of the song sounds like my grandmother, and then the singing came on, I'm like, okay, that's my grandma. And so I went on the website. Yeah, and I went to, it was on a radio station called Nova, which isn't even a jazz station. This is more of like a hipster station.
Mm-hmm.
So I went onto Nova.com, and it said her stage name was Stella Levitt, because she took on her second husband's last name for reasons I don't know. And that was her, and there was a little picture of her, and it was my grandmother. And so I contacted the station, and I just asked them, what made you play this song? I was excited but confused as well. And they said, oh, well, there was a jazz compilation that was created of all these underground jazz artists here in France, and your grandmother's track is the opening track.
What?
And it's one of the favorites. It's like, and then it went into the rotation of radio, where I heard it on 2 other stations in France. And I met with the people that put together the compilation. They gave me the vinyl of it, and a CD as well. And so she has a small, little, teeny tiny legacy in Paris with this one song.
Oh, that is amazing. I would love for you to send me the link to that so I can listen to it. I would love to hear that. That is such a neat story. Stella Levitt?
Yeah. Stella Levitt, yes.
Levitt? Wow.
Levitt, and her second husband, he's this incredibly accomplished jazz drummer who studied under Max Roach. He worked with Stan Getz, Sidney Bechet. Like, he's a really accomplished jazz drummer. So he exposed my grandmother to this amazing world of jazz. They recorded an album with Chick Corea, which I own as well. And so this is where the music comes in. It's like innate for me, because I didn't grow up with her because she was in Paris during my formative years, but I did end up meeting her and getting to know her when I was in my 20s before she passed.
Oh, wow.
And she was just this incredible woman who just followed her dreams to Paris. And that never appealed to me. And then one day it just did.
Wow.
And that was when I found out she had passed away. And I think, like, I don't know, maybe I was, like, inspired. I don't know. It was in the stars. And I moved to Paris probably 6 months after she passed away. I don't know if I was just, like, picking up where she left off, or maybe did things that she had to do, like settle down a little more. But, yeah, so I have an amazing grandmother that I look up to, and I think she's guiding me.
I just quickly went onto the internet, and I'm looking. What was the song called?
It's Notes So High.
Oh, they have it right here on YouTube. All right, when we get back, we're going to play this. We got to do the station ID, but we're going to play this off of YouTube, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be awesome. All right, you're listening today to the Adam Messer Show. I'm your host, Adam Messer, here today with my special guest, Lisa Czarina Michaud, and we were just talking about her lovely grandmother, and we're going to play that song after the break. But yeah, please stay tuned, and we appreciate your support.
This portion of WRUU Savannah Soundings programming is provided by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have available online ordering and curbside delivery, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 12 to 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming, and it doesn't just mean that we are a voice for the community. It also means that we are counting on the community to keep us going, and you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming.
Okay, everybody, we are back. Filling up. And that was just a little snippet. I hit the wrong button, but we're gonna play. Stella Levitt's "Note So High," which is Lisa's grandmother. She was a jazz musician, a jazz singer, and I think it's a really interesting story, Lisa. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. I love telling it.
Okay, so everybody, this is Stella Levitt, "Note So High," and it's right on YouTube. It's from the Freedom Jazz France compilation album, and so here we go. If I can get it to play. Let's see here. Oh, wow, that was amazing. That was Stella Levitt's "Note So High," and it was from the Freedom Jazz France 2013. Lisa, that was amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm saying thank you for my late grandmother, but yeah, it's a beautiful song. The drum work is gorgeous. The vocals,
she had a beautiful
really
voice.
Nice. She really did. She really did. she spoke like that too. It was amazing when she spoke. That's what it sounded like. And thank you so much for playing that. I think, yeah, she's smiling right now. So thank you, Adam.
The cool thing about it too, which I know that because of the technical stuff, you couldn't hear it, but it'll be there on the podcast. So anybody that listens, they'll be able to hear the whole song, and I think that's wonderful. I love that your grandmother, like that's such a neat. See, going back, you remember we were talking earlier about like the connection with art and music and all that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that where do you get that? You know what I mean? You can't really get that from technical stuff. That's people connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I was talking about when I was saying, you know, like I would love to. I love connecting with people and talking to people, and you know, just music, writing. You know, read, like when you're talking about storytelling. You know, that's what it all is. Art to me is storytelling, because everything we do, it's like an expression of something. You know, and you're telling a story in some way about, you know, whatever. So.
Yeah, it's a journey. I mean, every piece of art, there was a journey from the inception to the actual like birth.
Mm-hmm.
And every artist, whether you're painting, sculpting, writing, creating music, there's a journey, there's a story, there's an emotion, how they were feeling that day, and to what inspired them. There's just, I mean, the stories behind the stories are sometimes just as fascinating as the story themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like talking about the story about your connection to Paris with your grandmother, you know, that not necessarily that the two were connected per se, but I have a feeling and I believe strongly that there was some kind of interrelation between that. Like, oh, my grandmother went here, you know, she became a well-known musician, and then here you are over there, and you know, you've made a life, you know, you're married and have a child, and you're writing and, you know, living your life over there.
Following a creative passion, because, you know, I was living in New York. I was working in an office. I mean, I had an exciting job. I was working in fashion, but it wasn't feeding me. It was, you know, it was a job, and it just happened to be a fun one, but it was still a technical job. It was, you know, I was doing like coding and working with websites, and I guess my grandmother felt that I was made for a more creative life, and I guess in Paris, and I think she may have nudged me in that direction, because no way did I think it was even an option to be a writer as a job, even though I'm translating and doing copy and doing the novel. You know, I never thought I just didn't think that was an option ever. And apparently it is a job, and a lot of writers will tell you that. You never really think you can actually do it for a living until you start doing it for a living, and then you realize that this is a real job.
Oh yeah, I definitely understand that. We've got to do the station ID real quick. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. If you missed any part of the show, don't worry. You can listen to Lisa and I chit-chatting on the podcast. It'll be available later on theadammessershow.com. On pretty much, you can go to the .com and listen to it there, or you can go to YouTube and listen to it there, or anywhere you enjoy getting your podcast from, like Apple Podcasts or Amazon. It's on Amazon Music, and it's on Amazon. It's on the other one, the Audible. It's also on Audible now. So if y'all missed anything, don't worry. You can go back and listen to it. But we're here today on WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I love writing and I love publishing. It is a lot of work, and it's one of those things I feel like there's a lot of reward with it, you know, and with publishing and writing, because, you know, writing is one thing, and then when you put it out there and you publish it, you know, it doesn't matter if you self-publish or if you publish traditionally, or if you just print off a copy and give it to a friend, you're publishing it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that storytelling, when you're, you know, for example, with your story, you know, about a character, you know, in a rock band, and they're traveling, and, you know, I'm sure that character has their own progression, right? So they have their own story
Yeah.
that they're telling, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's a journey. The characters have their journey, their transition. You know, the stories, they start one way, and we watch them grow and resist that change as well. You know, and but grow into the person that they're supposed to be at the end of the story. And you know, throughout the whole story, our characters naturally are going to fight the change, as humans do. You know, we never really want to make those changes.
Yeah.
So then that's what adds that conflict and that tension, is that you see, like, the reader is always smarter than the characters in general, and I designed the story in that way, where it's from the point of view from two characters, a guy and a girl, and so we go back and forth between the two characters, and the reader sees the misunderstandings between the two characters because people think differently.
Right.
And you know, and the reader is more intelligent, and you know, a lot of my earlier readers were kind of like yelling at the book, no, that's not what she meant, that's not what she meant. And you know, they get it, like, and that's what excites me, is that my readers have been getting so involved in this story between my two characters. And yeah, we definitely go on a journey with them, and I use the road travel as a metaphor through that journey. You know, when they start in New York, they start as one person, and by the time they get to California, they're completely different people. And it's almost as if they've been put through an emotional washing machine.
I think that's
so, yeah.
that transformation is I don't know how to say it, but it's important, because if you don't change, if you don't learn something new, then what was the point of the journey? You know, what was the point of the process? You know, you're not making widgets. You don't want it to be the exact same, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, there's no story. You know, if they start the same and end the same, it's kind of like, why did I read this?
Yeah.
You know, you want.
it's disappointing when there's something not new, you know? One of the things I've heard over and over and over again from different authors that I've interviewed and talked with is people, you know, especially like we're all consumers of storytelling. We all love a good yarn, you know. Even people that say, "Oh, I'm not creative" or whatever. Like, well, you like good music and you like, you know, good entertainment, so you like good stories. You might not want to tell the stories yourself, but whatever. But yeah, but it's one of those things where people want the same, only different. You know,
yes.
They want something familiar. Yes. That's why we love nostalgia, right? Like I was, you know, talking about like the little radio and, you know, little boombox or whatever when I was a kid, and you know, we like that nostalgia, but we also, you know, we like nuance and novelty, and you know, we like newness, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. We want the same thing, but something different, and that's why, you know, all books and movies are written with the same story beats, where, you know, we have the character, we see their world, their story A, the first part of, you know, their current reality, and then they break into their second story, where that's where the change is going to happen, and they're going to learn. And then, you know, everything falls to pieces, and it's, you know, drama, the world is over, and then they figure out the problem was them all along, and this is how I change and become a better person. And even if it's, you know, happy endings or sad endings, you know, things generally work out at the end, whether the character realizes what they wanted in the beginning of the story wasn't really what they wanted, and what they really needed was to grow. You know, so, I mean, there's a formula, but it's just how you manipulate the formula and massage that information is what makes it different.
Yeah, I do love that. Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat, and his series of Save the Cat, and then Jessica Brody did the Save the Cat Writes a Novel. And I love that, because that's basically, they didn't invent it. You know, that's the hero's journey. It's been around for thousands of years. They didn't invent it. But the way that they break it down, and then you can see it, you can see it, the good and the bad. Like, you can see it with a good story, and you can see it really well with a bad story when it's disjointed, when people, because you can kind of mix and intermix those different elements, different points, not all of them, but you know, you don't want to just throw the audience or the reader out of joint where you're like, yeah, I'm just trying to be, you know, off kilter just to throw you off. There's no point to it, just to make you discombobulated. You know, people don't like that. They like it if you're like, oh, that's kind of mysterious, it's kind of different. I'm like, I really can't figure it out. And then, you lead them along the way, like, okay, well, this is why I threw you in that dark pit earlier, because now I want to bring you to the light and show you this is, what's going on between these two characters and why they're fighting back and forth. And you don't quite figure it out when, they're in Cincinnati, but by the time they get to LA, you're like, oh, okay. So
yeah, exactly. There needs to be a logic to the details.
Yeah.
You can be crazy and esoteric. That's totally cool, but like there has to be a logic, not just for the sake of being different. And
yeah, there's got to be orders of the chaos. There can't just be chaos with no rectification.
Yeah, totally. I mean, before I read Save the Cat, I had tried to write a book about my time in Paris and me moving to France. And even if it's a real story, you still have to follow that structure.
Oh yeah, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and
Yeah.
Conflict and drama are interesting. Everyday minutia is kind of boring.
Yeah, and the result was that it wasn't a very good manuscript. I wrote something, but it was good. It was teaching me. It was getting my brain
you get your chops.
It was a little like mental gymnastics.
Yeah, you're cutting your chops on it.
Yeah, I spent years on a book that I'll never publish, and at first I felt like a failure, but it was like, no, this is good. This is fantastic.
I've got a good one for you on that too, because that was my first novel that I wrote, and I spent a year writing it, and it was just awful, and I was like, I literally sent it to a friend of mine that I respected and admired, who was published, and they read it and they kind of avoided me on the feedback for a couple of months. And I was like, hey, can you just give me something, and they're like, I don't know what to say. And I was like, just be direct. I don't care. And they were like, well, it's really bad. And I was like, and I was like, and it took me aback, because at that point I'd been writing for business and writing academic, and I'd always had compliments on my writing and things like that. And then it set me back for probably like 2 years that I didn't write anything fiction wise. And but it was one of those things where I had to learn, like, okay, well, that was just one story, and I've written several others that will never be published that I'm just like, okay. But yeah, I felt the same way, Lisa. I was like, am I, I'm not cut out to be an author or a writer. So
totally, me too. I was like, I shelved it for a few years myself. I said, okay, I guess I'm just a translator, and yeah, wow, I had the same journey. I had like my mom said I fell asleep. And I said, oh, this isn't a
Mom
good
fell
book.
asleep reading your book? Oh, no.
Yeah, and my mom she's not going to be a cheerleader if she doesn't think it's, she's not going to.
She's more of a tough love.
She's tough, yeah. And she goes, well, all right, I'll put it this way. I wouldn't spend money on it. And I'm like, that's worse than falling asleep.
Oh man, we're gonna pick up this story after the break. Lisa, where can people check out information about your stuff?
I am on Instagram, Lisa C. Michaud, and that's my same handle on Twitter, Lisa C. Michaud, or you can go to my website, that is lisacmichaud.com.
And Michaud is spelled Michaud, everybody. So that'd be Lisa C as in Charlie, Michaud, Michaud.com. We're going to be back at 4:00, y'all. Lisa is going to be with us for another hour. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, WRUU.org.